Welcome to another show of Inside Guilford. I'm with Joe, my co-host like usual, and I'm sorry we haven't been really putting any shows on a lot lately. It's just because we've been both busy, and we're going to actually do another show on how busy Joe's been lately down the road. But right now we're here with an author and storyteller, James J. Griffin. How you doing, James?
I'm doing good for the soggy weather.
Yeah, it is. We are actually hoping that the rain will stop long enough so we can do this. Now, you're a part of a ranger group here in Connecticut. Could you tell us something about that?
Yeah, the Connecticut Horse Council Volunteer Horse Patrol. We help keep an eye on the state forests on the weekends and the state parks. We just keep an eye out and, give people directions. A lot of times it's the bathroom's that way, the bathroom's that way. But we can also do search and rescue if we need to. We can do first aid. And we tell people, put your dog back on the leash.
Yeah.
And you do that while mounted on the horse?
Well, on the horse. Yep,
Oh, terrific.
Yep.
Yeah, they're certified. They had to take a test to do that. And Yankee's also, as I'm sure you're going to ask me, a certified therapy horse.
Okay.
I've got my therapy dog in the house because he wants to stay where it's dry. But Yankee goes to hospitals and nursing homes. He's actually been inside a nursing home in Old Saybrook. Oh, good, the black flies are out, lovely. And he visits patients in nursing homes and hospitals and schools. We're trying to figure out how to get him the elevator at Yale, New Haven. We just can't get it figured out how to do it. And he, as you can see with John here, he's used to wheelchairs. He just loves to visit people. And he's anxious to do his tricks right now because he's
Okay, well, why don't we go ahead and do that just in case it rains?
Yeah, but do that before the
He's going to end up doing a couple of tricks for us that he does when he's at the rehab centers.
Yeah, the patients love these. Okay, have a kiss? How about a hug?
Oh, wow.
Another hug? How about a shake? Easy, easy. How about a neck massage? I want a nice neck massage. There we go. Can I see your teeth? You still chewing? Watch, where's your teeth? Show John your teeth. Ooh. There's your teeth. Show John your teeth. Okay. Okay, now, we're going to move around a little bit.
Go ahead, go for it.
I'm a horse thief, so don't mysterious. I'm a horse thief. I'm a horse thief. Yeah, see, he knows where John is. He stopped before he got too close. Now, it's going to get a little wet here, but before it rains, let me just get the right angle for the camera. Okay. All right, this is the best way. Come on, Jim. Come on, bud. Okay, no grass, not yet. Got to work first. I just need one of you guys to go bang. Just say bang.
Bang!
They shot me, Yank.
Does he know CPR too?
Yeah. Hey, I'm feeling nibbles there. Good boy. And that's, once I get up here, that's just kind of what we do for the nursing home patients. We put on a show for them, and they love petting and feeding them. It's amazing what these animals can do. We were actually at a nursing home one time. He wants to eat the microphone. We were at a nursing home one time when they brought a lady out, and she started petting him and talking to him, and I didn't pay any attention to it until the aide started to cry, and it turned out the lady hadn't talked for months, but she was willing to talk to the horses.
Beautiful.
And I was at a nursing home with my dog this morning. You want to bring my dog? Should I bring my dog out?
Yeah, you can bring all your dog.
Okay, you want to hold on to
Yes, I'll hold on to Yankee. And if you guys want at all, as the dog is like taking me over here.
Come here, Yankee.
You can go on to James J. Griffin. It's GRIFFIN.net, and you can actually find out everything about him and where James is going to be, his books. We're going to be talking about how he's been writing Western books and talk about some of his books he's been writing. But if you are wanting him to come out for a therapy horse, you can look at his schedule. Everything's about James is in that website, and that's JamesGriffin.net. And I think now Dougie's out now.
This is Dougie. Dougie and Yankee. Dougie's a little Freddy Yankee just because of his size. But Dougie's a Shih Tzu. Dougie needs a haircut. And Doug was my dad's. And when my dad was ill and his final illness, he went to the hospice, and they said, you got to make Dougie a therapy dog because he was so good. Hey, Dave. Yeah, you want to say hi to Doug? He's a little too big for Doug.
And how old is Yankee?
Yankee is 20. He just turned 20, and Dougie is 7. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to put Dougie back inside, but just for my dad, I just wanted to get him on the camera.
Okay.
It's beautiful.
So we're going to put you back in.
As he puts him back inside where it's safe. Actually, it's not raining, so it's really good right now.
He's so small, and
yep.
he's so big.
Oh, tell me how big Yankee is. He's
Tell you
he's taking me down.
The neat thing about horses, in addition to the type of therapy that John provides, is they're hello there. Oh, he's beautiful. They're used for physical therapy. It's called hippotherapy. They'll put kids and adults with disabilities on the back of a horse, and it's some of the best exercise psychologically and physically that can be provided to people, because there's just something about the bond between a horse and a person.
Yeah,
Explain
Nothing
about
like
the
it.
bond in between a horse
okay,
and a
yeah,
person.
I do want to explain that Yankee's not the therapy horse that so many people do, that, you know, people who have physical disabilities or even mental disabilities that actually go riding like down in High Hopes and Old Line. Yankee's not a therapy riding horse to help people get with their coordination if they have, say, cystic fibrosis or multiple sclerosis. Yankee just makes people happy.
Yeah.
And he is so good at it. He knows if we're going to the trailer. If he comes up in nursing home, all of a sudden his ears perk up and he just starts bouncing. And it's just so good for elderly people or anybody stuck in a nursing home. You know, they're just kind of stuck there. And any diversion at all. And these animals have not judgmental at all. It doesn't matter what your handicap is. You know, like people look at somebody and say, "Oh, look at that! They've got this or they've got that." These horses and dogs don't care. They just want to be with people and be petted. And I'm going to throw in here, if you think you have an animal that might be a therapy animal, and it's not hard to do, what you want to do is go to Pet Partners. It's www.petpartners.org. They have all the information on how to have a therapy, get your animal certified to be a therapy animal. And we've always said, my riding partner does this with me, and we don't know who gets the most out of it. The animals, the patients, the staff, because the staff loves to see us come by, or us. It's just such a warm feeling when you see the way the people just love to see these animals. And they love it because they get petted and fed. You know, every place we go, they've always got carrots and treats for them. That's what Yankee's looking for right now. He thinks he's getting a little treat out of the deal here. Here, you back up. I got another piece of carrots.
Now, do you charge for your service?
No,
for going
we're not
out?
supposed to. If they offer a gas donation, just because gas is so expensive.
Of course.
For the horse trailer. I don't own a trailer. My friend does. So when I go with the dog, there's no charge. If they offer a gas donation, we're happy to take it just because gas is so expensive. But really, there's no charge for it.
So everything you really do is totally voluntary.
It's all volunteer.
Out of the goodness of your heart and the animal's heart.
Well, even going back to the state patrol, that's all volunteer. The state, when it started, the state was running out of money, so we just kind of stepped in and patrolled some of the forest. We were supposed to get a few things from the state. We got some. We didn't get anything. We got patches. We had to pay for those. Just because the state was out of money. So everything we do for the horse patrol is volunteer. Now, if you're out in the woods and you see a person on a horse wearing a red shirt and a patch that says horse patrol, like the one I got in my hat here, that's us.
Oh,
and
wow.
again, these horses are highly trained, as you can see. He's used to wheelchairs. He's used to dogs. He also thinks that I'm his big shoe toy. Yankee's spoiled. He was a rescue after my other horse died, and I just felt bad for him. And we're going back to the bond. We got away from the bond here. You have to have, more so than even with a dog, you have to have an absolute trust with the horse, because he's got to trust you, you've got to trust him. One of the first times we were out patrolling was up at Chatfield Hollow, and we were on a new trail that we'd never been on before. It turned out it dead ended at a cliff, and his left hind foot, or right hind foot, was literally hanging off a 75-foot cliff, and you couldn't go on the other way. You couldn't go forward, couldn't go back, and you couldn't go left because we're up against the bank on the other side. Nice. We had to back off that cliff before we get the place to turn around, and we just understood what we had to do.
He never flinched.
And as you can see, he just thinks, loves people.
He's a sweetie. Now, I need to ask, does he have his mane, are these natural curls? Or?
Yeah. I've got a lot of women who are jealous of his mane, because if the wintertime, this time of year it's kind of faded out. In the wintertime, it's like they frosted it. He's actually a registered American paint horse, but he came out without spots, so he's kind of a breeding stock. Mm-hmm. And I should mention, if you see these red boots on his feet here, I buy whatever color's on sale, but Yankee was neglected before I got him, and his feet were neglected. So he's got a touch of navicular, which is kind of like a horse arthritis.
Yes.
So he's got a deteriorating bone in his front feet, especially his right one. And what those do is they help protect his feet, and also he overreaches when he trots, which means he steps on his front feet with his back ones. So that helps keep him from pulling his horseshoes off. But they're a little bit of extra protection, because everybody always asks about those boots.
Yeah.
They don't know what it is. Yeah, I know, you're being pushed.
Now, what you mentioned, he was neglected. Was he a workhorse previously?
No,
or?
the lady bought him for her husband, then she sold her horse, and he was just stuck in a corral. She fed him, I'll give her that much. But he hadn't had shots for 3 years. His feet were curling up. They hadn't been trimmed. He hadn't been wormed. I found some expired wormer, went up to look at him and said, I'm going to worm with this expired wormer. I had just lost my horse 2 weeks ago. But before that, my horse Sizzle. And I was determined not to get another one. I went up to New Hampshire to the tack shop to say, I'm not coming back. They said, you got to go get this horse. And I kept saying no. And I finally went up and looked at him. He put his head on my shoulder and said, I want out of here. So out he came. And we've been together 15 years now, huh, Nut?
And it is so tough to say no to a horse or an animal in need.
Yeah. We've got one down at the barn. Maybe I can get Gina to bring him up if you'd like. She's got a little mini rescue.
Oh, absolutely.
So we'll have her bring him up.
Absolutely.
Hold Yankee again.
Sure. I could hold him, John, if you want to keep him on camera. I say, John.
This little guy is Merlin. Merlin's a mini horse. He belongs to Gina, who owns the place here. Gina and her husband Dick. She got him as a rescue almost 2 years ago now to keep my horse and her horse, Trooper, company. And Merlin also does therapy work. He's not certified to do it yet, but he goes to hospitals and nursing homes. And as you can see, he's a great size for the patients because he's just so tiny. Yeah. You want to step up here, man?
Hey, sweetie.
Show if you want to.
Come here.
Show him that carrot.
Come here.
Come here, Merlin.
Are you camera shy?
Yeah, he just didn't know the carrot's there.
There you go.
Ah, see, there you go. Now you're happy.
He was abused.
Now he has a friend.
We don't know his history, but we know he was abused. He was headed for the slaughterhouse.
Oh, jeez.
But we know he was abused just by the way he acted. He's much better than he used to be. You can see he's got a bad knee. You see how his knee is swollen there?
Yeah.
And we're not sure if that was an accident or whatever, but he can jump and run and everything, but he does limp. And Merlin, like I said, he's a little mini guy. And Gina's had him for almost 2 years now, and he also, especially kids love him because he's kid size.
Yeah.
And he is not a pony, because everybody looks and says, look at the pony.
Yeah.
He's a miniature horse. There is a difference. He's an actual miniature horse.
Now, what are they bred for? What are they used for?
We're really not sure. Now they use them for, I've got to admit, I'm not an expert on mini horses, but they basically, they used to use them in the mines over in England, some of the small ones, the ponies.
Okay.
And people just decided they wanted smaller horses, so they kept breeding smaller horses just because they can jump. You can't really ride them unless you're a small child, but they use them to pull carts and they use them to jump, and they put them in shows, pretty them on up, and best looking one gets a ribbon. But they're great companions.
And they make great
actually
pets.
They're using them now for seeing eye horses. Instead
Really?
of dogs, because they live longer. They live to be about 40 years old.
Really?
So they're actually using them for seeing eye dogs. They put little sneakers on them and little diapers on them.
Really? And a similar harness,
Similar
I
harness
imagine,
to
must
seeing
be
eye
on the
dogs.
side. Really?
Yeah, and they've
That's
actually,
fascinating.
some airlines have, on occasion have had to alter the seat so they can get the mini horse in because they're seeing eye horse. So that's what they do. They're training these guys because a seeing eye dog was 10 years maybe. These guys have got the lifespan of 30 to 40.
Yep. And I could imagine myself putting a very small harness on them, hooking up to my chair, and just
you
go
could-
carting
yeah,
around.
Takes you on taxi rides
Yeah,
out of
the-
New York.
Tell me about it.
Trains.
Yeah.
But I'm going to put him back and get Yankee back. But I just wanted you guys to see him because he's a good guy and he came
He
a
is
long
beautiful.
way from when we first got him.
And thank God for people like you and others who rescue people like animals like this.
Well, my riding
'Cause it's-
partner couldn't be here today. Does their work. She's got a Mustang. That's
Yeah.
a whole other story. You might want to do someday. But let me go put him back and I'll be right back.
Very-
This is a shock.
What's that?
He would never be this close to a horse before.
I'll tell you, once people get over their initial fear, it's amazing how easily the bonding process can be.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel a hard time with him, like, when we go to have the petting zoo at the fair.
Yeah.
I told him how to feed an animal. And he still doesn't quite get it, but...
No, you're not going to run across?
Well, the biggest thing, John, is if you give them a treat, always make sure your hand is absolutely flat.
I tell him that, but he keeps...
Or else they love going for the fingers.
No, he goes like this.
Oh, and then it rolls off.
Yeah.
And
That kind of defeats the purpose.
We're done with him if you want to put
I'll go put him back.
We're going to stand here and talk about your books.
Okay, I bought a couple.
Okay, bring him
Oh,
with
good.
you. Okay, we are back. Jim put away his horses, James did. And actually, as we're talking, Joe's going to hold up some books that James has written. Now, before we go into your books, you had an article in the Texas Ranger Digest or something?
Texas Ranger Journal, which
Journal,
is
yes.
an online magazine for the Texas Ranger Hall of Fame Museum down in Waco.
Yep. Now, you've been traveling a lot. That's why you can write these books?
Yeah,
or?
Going back to when I was a kid, more years than I want to admit, there was a TV show which a lot of the older viewers remember called Tales of the Texas Rangers.
I
would
remember
watch them
that.
every Saturday morning. I just got fascinated by them, and I've always been fascinated by the Rangers. And a few years back, a guy had gotten to know, it's a funny story. I was collecting the old Texas Ranger pulps, buying them on eBay, and there was a guy I was bidding against, or a person I was bidding against, whose eBay ID was Ranger's wife. Well, I bought a couple of books from Ranger's wife, and I said, by the way, are you really married to Texas Ranger? I got a phone call back and said, yeah, she is, and this is a Texas Ranger, not her. It's like, oh boy, he thinks I'm chasing his wife.
Oh,
But his name's Jim Huggins. He just retired. He's a professor at Baylor now, and he teaches me a lot about the Rangers. But how I got started in the writing is another friend when I was collecting these pulps named James Reasoner wanted some research about horses, and he knew I had Yankees, so he asked me, and he promised to write me one of his books as a Texas Ranger, which he did. He had a series of books called the Civil War series, and he wrote me in as a Texas Ranger as a character. And James kept saying, there are James all over the place here, as you can tell. Yeah. You can write, write a book. So I wrote a book called Trouble Rides the Texas Pacific, which is actually the original version of this one, Death Rides the Rails. And it sold quite a few copies. It was self-published. So I just kept going. I've got like 15 books now. I'm a member of Western Writers of America and Western Fictioneers, collaborating on a series with some of the other writers. And I've got a couple more books to be out later this year.
And these are nonfiction?
They're
They're fiction,
yeah,
fiction
they're all
stories.
traditional Texas Ranger stories. Most of them kids could read. There's no really graphic violence or sex or really foul language there. No foul language at all, as a matter of fact. There's that one there. Ride for Redemption.
Ride for Redemption.
And the one before that is the same character, Cody Havlicek. Those are actually written for young adults, so they're made as boys like 12, 13, 14-year-olds like those, because there's a lot of riding and shooting, and the first one, the 14-year-old boy, is the hero of the book.
And you have great recommendations here. Jakeem Jackson, a retired Texas Ranger, absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
That's terrific. That's
yeah,
really
it's a lot
terrific.
of fun. They're good old-fashioned Westerns like we grew up with, you and me. John's a year or two behind us.
Well, like you were talking about this TV show. I don't know nothing. I never heard of the TV show before.
It's one of the few that you can't get on DVD. I've got a couple pirated copies because evidently the consultant, well, they put him down as a technical consultant, but as a Ranger captain named M.P. Gonzalez in the 50s. Well, he was down as consultant, but he actually owned half the rights to the show, and his family has never released the copyright rights, so there's still a battle going on. So you can't really get them. A few people pirated them. But the quality's not very good.
Now, you have an unusual collection. What's
Yeah.
your unusual collection? Now, tell people.
Which one?
Oh, the one about trail. You had Texas Ranger stuff you got?
Yeah, I knew that was what you're going after.
Yeah.
I started collecting a few years back Texas Ranger items. There was the series of Texas Ranger pulps went from 1936 to 1958. I managed to collect every one of the Texas Ranger pulp magazines.
Wow.
Which was a fight, especially getting the last two. And the funny part was the one from November 1949. The title story is Guns of Fort Griffin. Well, my last name's Griffin, and I was born November 1949.
Wow.
So of course I wanted that one. Every time I would try to bid for that magazine, it would go for like $70, $80, $90, $100.
And this is on eBay?
On eBay or wherever.
Shootouts on eBay.
So it's like, why is this particular one so expensive? Well, it turns out there's a story in there by L. Ron Hubbard, who used to write Westerns under the name W.R. Colt.
Really?
So every time that would come up for bid, the Scientologists were buying it. So that's where it gets so expensive. But I did finally get some copies. But I collected those and a whole bunch of other Texas Ranger stuff over the years. And I realized I was getting older. You know, my sisters wouldn't know what to do with it. My brother wouldn't know what to do with this stuff. My nieces and nephews. This is what I do with it. So I gave it to the Texas Ranger Museum down in Waco. So if anybody ever travels to Waco, you'll see all my stuff in the museum down there.
Yeah, I was reading that too. And this one is actually your last one that you just got published at the beginning of the year, right?
Yeah.
Is this the one?
Yep.
It's called Death Rides the Rails. Now, what's this kind of about? Can you just do like a summary of what the book is about?
Well, this is my characters are named Jim Bludgick and Cody Havlicek. This one's a Jim Bludgick story. People don't realize how many ethnic groups settled in Texas before the Civil War. And I based these Polish Texas Rangers on this town of Bandera, which was settled in 1855, and a lot of Polish people moved there to work on the shingle mills from Poland. And my mother's last name was Bludgick originally before they hyphenated it, or I anglicized it to Blanchard. They thought they anglicized it, more like francicized it. So anyway, Jim Bludgick is a Texas Ranger. He's riding a train to an assignment up in the panhandle of Texas when the train is wrecked and robbed. And he decides, of course, he's going to go after the train robbers, and it turns out that there's a whole big plot to try to destroy the Texas and Pacific Railroad. So that's basically what this book is about, and that's the first of the series. They are series, but they are standalones, so you can actually read them in any order. You don't have to read them which way you want.
And you just, this past Christmas, I remember I work with Jim. So he was telling me he's going to write one about Christmas and everything, but I didn't think you had it out already. You never came back with me, but I noticed that you did end up publishing it and everything.
Yeah, that was the anthology from the Western Fictioneers. It's called, let's see, Six Guns and Sleigh Bells,
Yes.
spelled S-L-A-Y, a cryptic cover of Christmas story. And one reason you didn't get it is because that thing sold out so fast. It was incredible. Wow. And there's 24 stories in there, I think, or 16. I can't remember which now. And it's unique. They're all Christmas ghost stories. And my story in there was nominated for a Peacemaker Award, which is kind of like being nominated for the Oscars. My story was called The Toys. And it was based on an actual incident in Wyoming in 1892.
Wow.
Nice.
But that's, if you like ghost stories and cowboy stories and Christmas stories, they're all kind of combined together in that anthology.
Now, how long have you actually been writing the books themselves?
Since 2005.
Really?
So about 8 years now.
Wow, you've been
I did a couple
busy.
online before that, but
A total of how many books?
it depends on how you count them because there's some collaborations. I go 14 right now. Mm-hmm. You can go down to like 12 or up to like 16 because there's a series that we're writing together, the Wolf Creek series, which is written by the Western Fictioneers. And I'm going to have another story out for Christmas in that series.
And you self-publish all your own books?
No.
Oh, you have a publisher now?
The first couple were, this one is not self-published. This is published by Condor Publishing out of Michigan, up where Ross lives.
Okay.
And then I've got, this one was published by Solstice. And then there's
nice.
some that are published by Dancing Fox. But it's more and more, Western Fictioneers just opened up the awards this year to self-published books because more and more people are just skipping
The whole
going to publishers
agent
and doing it
everything
themselves.
else.
And you were nominated for an award, weren't you?
Yeah, as I say, the one in the Toys was nominated for a Peacemaker
Yep.
Award. And Fight for Freedom, which I don't have with me, could have been, but that was a self-published book, and they haven't opened it up yet. Had it not been self-published, it would have been nominated. They told me that already. So this year, I'm one of the judges.
Well, then you won't be nominated for anything.
No, not this year.
Now, what's the time frame that your books cover? Are they early Western days?
Yeah, 1870s to 1890s.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yep. It's one thing you got to be careful of because I'm not an expert on weapons. I've got friends down in Texas. Their names are Carl Wren and Penny Riggs. They run a firearms training company for the police down there, and they're real experts on westerns and guns of the period. And Carl's already said he can never divorce Penny because she's a better shot than he is, so he doesn't dare leave her. And they're the ones I write on. For example, a lot of people like to have, and I would tend to do it myself. I did not talk to them. A single-shot cartridge revolver. Well, the cartridge revolvers didn't really come around until like 1873, 1874, and people don't realize that. A lot of the movies are terrible with the accuracy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I try, like I say, I try to make them as accurate as possible, but they are fiction, so we do move things around. One thing I've found out will trip me up and a lot of people, as a matter of fact, I have a blog out today on the Western Fictioneers blog about how to write a Ranger novel, just happened to be online today. So many towns in Texas that people think were there forever weren't.
Huh.
Like Lubbock didn't come around until 1909. Mm-hmm. Amarillo wasn't until 1887. So if you have your Texas Ranger riding in a story set in 1880, riding to Lubbock or Amarillo, you're wrong. The towns weren't even there.
Now, what is your own connection with Texas?
None.
None. I mean, 'cause you're up here in the Northeast, but it
Yeah.
seems like you are so accurate in your writing.
Yeah. Well, I do a lot of research, and I've got, like I said, I've got friends down there. I've been there a lot. Jim's a Texas Ranger.
Mm-hmm.
One story I've got ends in his hometown. But I've always just been fascinated by the West. I mean, I've been out there a lot. I've been to 49 states, just have never been to Alaska. Been out to all the Western states. And I love the West, but as I tell everybody will say, why didn't you go out there and be a cowboy? I said, are you kidding? Cowboys have to work. I'm a horseman. And they'll say to me sometimes, how come you don't camp? They said, cowboys camp? What kind of cowboy are you? I'll say, look, cowboys were very practical. If there'd been Best Westerns back in the day doing those cattle drives, cowboys would have been inside those Best Westerns at night. They wouldn't have been
Yep.
sleeping under the stars.
Yep.
Yeah, so you grew up in where now?
I grew up right here I was born in New Haven, raised in West Haven and Wallingford. Live in Brantford now, spent some time living in San Diego, lived in New Hampshire for quite a few years. That's where I'm going to retire. And like I tell everybody, yeah, I love the West, but I'm a born and raised New Englander, and I love New England even better. I'm a New Englander.
But what a great mix. I mean,
Yeah.
to have your background here, but be so immersed in Texas history,
Yeah.
and it sounds like you have had a fun life, haven't you?
There's a few of us. There's a guy named Matthew Mayo. He lives in Maine. Same thing. He writes nothing but Westerns. Mm-hmm. And he does some mysteries too, but he lives on the coast of Maine. There's quite a few.
Really?
You look at the Western Fictioneers, or not so much Western Fictioneers, but the Western Writers of America roster. Just had two people sent up today this month. One was from Massachusetts. The other one's from New Jersey. We're all over the place.
Yeah.
Hey, as long as you have a typewriter and an imagination.
Well, the thing is, and this is my little lecture. I just did this yesterday at a presentation I did. you know, unfortunately, back in the 70s and 80s, people got away from our own heritage. Kids stopped reading Westerns. They stopped making Western movies a lot. And, you know, kids like Guilford is known for that Renaissance fair. And people think, well, wow, we're learning, but that's white Middle Ages Europe.
Yeah.
And they study all sorts of other cultures now, but they've forgotten our own heritage. You know, the West and even New England heritage. And here's a little known fact, speaking of New England and the West. Anybody want to guess where branding first took place? Everybody thinks out west. New Hampshire.
Wow.
And it wasn't cattle,
Really?
it was sheep.
Really?
Oh.
They would turn the sheep loose on the greens. You know, everybody thinks the green was a really
Yeah.
pretty place.
Yep.
But of course, in colonial New England, the greens were pastures.
Yep.
So they were pretty muddy most of the time. And the farmers would turn their sheep out on the green or the common to graze, and they'd have to be able to tell them apart, so they would brand them. So branding started in New Hampshire, and it was sheep, not cattle.
Wow.
Now, one question I'm sure viewers may have, and I'm not sure if you will have the answer. How accurate was Walker Texas Ranger?
Oh, please. The Texas Rangers hated that story. Jim's mother loved it. Like they said, he would have been in jail for constitutional abuse and abuse of prisoners within the first 2 weeks of that show. But
Yep.
It's funny, the thing they hated most about that show, I'm sure some of them were jealous because he got away with so much they can't. But the thing they hated most was the beard, because Texas Rangers have a dress code.
Clean
They don't have
shaven.
uniforms, but they have a dress
Yeah.
code.
Yep.
And the black hat, because they wear white hats.
Yeah.
Yep.
They didn't back in the old days. They wore whatever they wanted. Now they wear white hats as part of their dress code.
Okay. And how active are the Rangers? Like, what is the Rangers' role today in the law
Today,
enforcement society?
They're still active. There's females now. They weren't back then, of course, but they're more detectives now. Jim likes to tell me they hardly ever get in shootouts. At the same time he was telling me this, he was telling about 2 shootouts he was in 1 week in his hometown, which is a small hometown, but it's halfway between Houston and Dallas. Jim was a forensic expert. I don't have my Ranger hat on today. I didn't want to get it wet. I have my Ranger belt on. Jim got me this belt.
Oh,
It's a
beautiful.
genuine Texas Ranger belt, but
Beautiful.
I didn't want to get my Ranger hat ruined today with the rain. But he actually figured out my head size from a picture and sent me the hat.
Wow.
Now, where do the Rangers fit within, like, say, local police, state police?
Well, that's another thing that Walker got real wrong. They had him in the big city with Alex was his boss.
Yeah.
No, the Texas Rangers, they're assigned to a company. There's 6 Ranger companies all over the state, but their offices are out in the field. So Jim was in Centerville, even though it was attached to Waco, and then they moved the offices around to Houston. Basically, they help the local law enforcement. Texas is still a very rural state in a lot of places. And you won't see them too much in Houston or Dallas, although they can be. But they're mostly helping the sheriffs out in the West. And some of them still do have horses. Most of them don't now, but the ones out West still do. And believe it or not, they still chase a lot of cattle rustlers down.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
That's still a problem.
But remember Waco, David Koresh back,
Yes.
what was that, the 80s
Yeah, of
was
course.
that? And the FBI and that big debacle they had there?
Yeah.
The Rangers were there, and they backed away because they knew it was going to be a disaster. They just walked away and said, we're washing our hands of this. We're getting out of it. Because they knew that the FBI, they get along, but there's also kind of a rivalry there. Because the
course.
FBI, I guess, at least the way the Rangers look at it is the FBI comes in and says, we're taking over, and the Rangers don't like
Of course. How big of a organization is it?
There's 100 and, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe off by a number too, but 106, I believe.
Wow.
106 to 112 to cover. Like Jim's territory, until he retired, covered 3 counties that were the equivalent in territory of New Jersey, Connecticut, and Delaware combined.
All
for
put together.
One Ranger.
Absolutely. Yep.
One Ranger.
Now, I have a question for you. What would you say to somebody that's watching you and thinking about being an author or trying to be an author? Which ways would you send them now these days? Because the e-books out there and stuff like that, how did that change the outlook of books and everything, in your opinion?
First of all, don't think you're going to get rich, because unless you're a Stephen King, you're not. That's why I'm still working 2 jobs. E-books are good. Right now, I've got a series of e-books coming out, and one just came out as an audiobook. I'm actually making more money off the e-books right now. A lot of these books have been converted or are being converted to e-books. I would say now, the old days you had to get an agent, and of course it's catch-22. Agent didn't want you until you were published, and nobody wanted to publish you until you got an agent.
Yeah.
Now you can go out and publish your own. The only problem, and that's why self-publishing has such a stigma, for the first, say, 5-10 years, nobody edited. So, I've looked at some of these books that are absolute trash. It was just somebody walked in from a 3rd grade classroom and said, I'm going to be an author, and wrote these books. Another person you and I both work with, who I won't name, I know his books needed quite a bit of editing. He didn't realize how much editing they needed when he first submitted them. If you are going to write your own book, you can self-publish it, but make sure you don't just have a friend look at it, because a friend's going to say it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Get a professional editor to
Get
go
an editor,
through.
or get a stranger, or an English teacher, one of your old English teachers, or a newspaper man if you know one, or even somebody you don't really know, but somebody's going to look at it and say, look, this sentence doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Look, you know, you've got a plot hole here.
Yeah.
Because if you get a friend or a relative, they're going to look and say, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
And the thing is, just keep trying. My first book, it took me 3 years. And the sad part of the first book is after I ended up self-publishing it, a big publisher came and said, we want the book. It's like, guys, you waited 3 years. You're only supposed to wait 18 months for a publisher at the most. They waited 3 years.
Wow.
And they want it revised a third time, and they only give me $1,000 advance. So I actually made more money self-publishing. But yeah, if I would say if you want to do it, do it. Don't hesitate.
Yep.
But if you want to self-publish, go ahead.
It's not going to happen overnight either. Right?
No. The thing is now Amazon makes it so easy because they put in their own CreateSpace, their own self-publishing.
Yeah.
Yep.
This one here is a CreateSpace book.
Really?
And an author friend of mine out of Maine recommended a friend of hers who designs these for me. So, you know, designing is sometimes the hardest part.
Nice.
She did the cover. She formats the book. I can write them. I can't format them. And I can't market them.
Now, you also have your horse in here as a character and your dog. Is that correct?
The dog's not in there.
Oh, the dog with the horses?
This one here.
Okay, this is another picture of another book he has.
Yeah, and these books we have my first horse, Sam, is in there.
Okay.
This one's Yankee. This publisher insists that their trademark for their covers is a silhouette of the author. So every time you see a Condor Publishing book, you'll see a silhouette of the author who wrote the book on there.
So that's you on the horse.
This is me on the front horse,
beautiful.
and that's Yankee.
Oh, beautiful.
We actually, the other book, Bin Bay Death Trap, I actually had where I used to keep them, there's up here in Clinton, there's all sorts of rocks. I had to go flopping all over the rocks for an hour while they were doing a photo shoot with Yankee up above. And the picture on Big Ben Death Trap shows me on the side of a cliff with Yankee up above looking down trying to figure out how to get me back up.
And who's this friendly
This
creature?
is Karma, that's Gina's dog. She was also a rescue. She's out of the south somewhere. Maybe a Katrina dog. When Gina's dog passed away, we went down to Petco to do one of our therapy animal things. And Gina went down there having a pet adoption that day. And she's half lab and half whippet and can run like crazy. But her name's Karma. And she's also a rescue. Oh yeah, her tail can beat you to death. But she's, I don't let Dougie out because Dougie would run away. She's got an invisible fence, so she won't go anywhere.
She actually welcomed us when we drove in.
Yeah.
We came early.
Karma's a sweetheart. She's Gina's dog.
And do you work with any nursing homes or facilities in Guilford?
We're supposed to be going down. We kept getting rained out to Apple Rehab in Guilford. We're going there a week from Saturday, weather permitting.
Oh, terrific.
A week from Sunday. I'm sorry, I stand corrected. A week from Sunday.
And how are homes and facilities' reaction when you come and say, I would like? Do they come to you or do you go to them?
Well, it started with a friend of ours whose father was in a nursing home in Essex said, "Can you bring the horses up because his dad wanted to see the horses?" So that's how we got started. And 90% of the time, they're chasing us now. We've actually had to cut back. We used to go to a state psychiatric hospital in Middletown, secure facility for children with severe psychiatric issues. And the kids there would go crazy because half those kids had never seen horses. And our horses I've got my horse Yankee and Debbie's horse Joy, who was a Mustang. She was captured when she was 18 months old off the range. And the kids would hang all over these horses. We were at Chatfield Hollow one time, and a group of Down syndrome kids happened to come in on a bus. And these Down syndrome kids were hanging all over the horses, up, down, under, and the horses just stood there. And no, the facilities want to see us. They look for us. They ask every year for us to come by.
That's great.
We just can't keep up with it.
Yeah, that's great.
Especially because I don't have a trailer. I rely on Debbie and her old trucking trailer. And
before we wrap, can you give both the website again for the organization that helps people who want to do therapy animals?
That would be Pet Partners, www.petpartners.org.
And also your own website.
JamesGriffin.net, www.jamesgriffin.net. And if you go to that one, you not only read about my books and you read a lot about the Texas Rangers, there's also pictures there of me doing some of my presentations at the nursing homes.
Oh, terrific.
Oh, let me give you one more, too. For anybody who might be interested just to read about the Texas Rangers, a great place to go is the museum website, which is the Texas Ranger Hall of Fame and Museum. And that's www.texasranger.org. Not Rangers, because that takes you to an Ranger Alumni Association. So you want to do ranger.org.
And would we have these links available as well?
Yes.
Terrific.
Now, as we're wrapping it up, you can also go on to that website to find out how to purchase any of his books or anything that he has, or just to find out where he's going to be at next time. And he might be somewhere where you have a nursing home, person that is a loved one is at your nursing home and everything. And we want to say thank you for Jim.
I want to thank you for inviting me.
I want to thank Jesse Warner for being behind the camera today and moving the camera a lot today. This is the first one that he had really had to remove the camera a lot. And of course, Joe coming back on Inside of Guilford and co-hosting with me.
Good to be back.
Oh, and I want to thank Dick and Gina McManus for letting us film here today.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
This is the farm. We're in Clinton. This is the farm. And thank God the weather stopped. It didn't rain. It was pouring like 2 minutes before we came out here. And it stopped raining, thank God. And the views and the statements that were done on the show is nothing for any of the public stations that this tape is going to be aired on. It's just opinions of our own, of Joe's and Jim and me. Also, if you like us on Facebook and Inside Guilford. We have our own page on Facebook. Like us is Inside Guilford. Also, if you'd like to come on our show, send us a message on Facebook, or you can reach me at Guilford, GLFD, the abbreviation Guilford, TV Guy at gmail.com, and I'll be very happy to bring you along and be on the show. So if you have a book coming out, if you know how to play instruments, you want to sing, whatever
An
you
interesting
got,
story, an interesting life.
stories, anything. We want to start showcasing people in the area and everything, a little bit more and everything. So go ahead, any last minutes? That's what I was going to
While John's talking, that reminds me, I also come around to like senior centers and the nursing homes and do presentations on my own. We do little Wild West reenactments and talk about my books afterwards. So if anybody wants, any kind of organization would like me to come by and do a little Wild West reenactment, we do that.
Terrific. That's terrific.
Okay, thanks everybody, and I think
Jim,
that's a wrap,
pleasure
and have a
meeting you.
great
Thank
day
you very
now,
much.
everybody.
Thanks, John.
Bye.
Thank you, no problem, thank you.
Yeah, I will mention to Debbie, though, if you want to do a story about her and the wild Mustangs.
Yeah, fine.
Oh, that'd be fantastic.
We can go out to her